Michael and Martin, it's great to see you guys. Michael, always good to see you and have you back. And welcome to the update. And I think I'll just dive right into the questions. And really, it centers around the recent results from Grog and that the fact you had uncovered some things that suggest you now actually have a better understanding of the epithermal system. Michael, perhaps we could start with you and you could expand on that a little bit and what this means to X-Terra Resources.
Of course. Well, first off, thanks, Chris, for having us back. I'm glad that Martin Demers, our senior consulting geo, can be on the line with us today to kind of dive into a little bit more details. But the last results on Grog, which we drilled 0.29 grams over 52, almost 53 meters, is extremely important and opens up a new perspective on the Grog gold potential. Let's not forget that this follows our discovery of 0.46 grams per ton over 31 meters from the 3 initial holes that we drilled there in early 2020. I always like to stress that the Grog area was literally never explored prior to 2017. Since that surface discovery, we've completed an abundance of work, which included trenching, mapping, soil geochemistry, airborne magnetic, and IP geophysics. All indicators supported the location of a strong hydrothermal system with gold, arsenic, and stibnite signatures, which is covering approximately a 2-kilometer square area. I think I'm going to invite Martin to talk a little bit about the deposit model that we're using right now for our exploratory efforts.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. The deposit model is, as you mentioned, is epithermal because we found on the field a lot of evidences for that, and it follows well-documented geological parameters normally associated with this type of deposit. For example, the alteration is very extensive. It's pervasive, carbonate, clay alteration, affecting granular sediments in this context. There is a dike swarm, which is actually not controlling exactly the mineralization, but it helps to define the extension of this system. To date, we found also that there is a strong pyrite pyrite signature with local stibnite. It creates a halo around our gold zone. But at the end, we are in the Appalachian Mountain. The deposit is controlled by structure, deformation state. We know that it will influence a lot the geometry and position of the gold system. So the development of this model has highlighted a spectrum of geological guides that will help X-Terra to recognize potential extension outside the already known mineralized intersections.
Fall 2020 drill program, which covered the Grog drill target with 16 holes. It was completed primarily to test all of the north-south trends and structures, generally using a plus 50-meter step out. The program used the main north-south structure orientation, as Martin was mentioning, how structure is very important, as a main guideline. As a result, 3 holes of the last program returned intervals of more than 0.2 grams over 4 meters, with our best result, as I've already mentioned, of 0.29 grams per ton over 52.75 meters, originating from the last hole of the program, which was drilled subparallel to the mineralized trend that's now identified. This helped demonstrate that the mineralized trend was cross-cut over its entire length. And I think we need to go, maybe Martin can talk a little bit about the structural interpretation as well following that last 2020 program and how it's changed the view on the Grog potential. Martin?
Yeah, because all the work, we have to know that Grog is a fairly new project. It was discovered in 3 years ago. And it's in this area, there's not a lot of outcrop. It's mostly covered by glacial sediment. There's not big thickness, but it's quite challenging because we count only on trenching and drilling most of the time for doing our interpretation. So in the Grog area, everything north-south is more prominent, and we use that for planning our first pass of drilling. But the continuous interpretation of results and geology indicates now a fairly different view on the potential, on orientation of gold-bearing structure. So the main trend and now is more interpreted east-west, with a decent width of can vary between 40 to 50 meters. It was actually tested down to 150 meters, and we know now that this control makes sense with the local geology, and these more east-west trend are actual plane to a family of folds, and we know that these folds are quite elongated, and we aren't good. We know that probably we'll be able to extend that for about 500 meters. The actual drill coverage is limited to our vertical depth as 150 meters, I've already mentioned. And we have also, with this new information, we have revisited previous drill targets. And during early 2020, we have drilled Bellevue North, for example, which is about 700 meters south of Grog. And we find that preliminary scattered results obtained could and most likely correspond to the margin of another east-west trend. We consider now this improvement in our understanding as a key element to further our exploration with a better expectation for a higher hit ratio and discovery rate.
Well, that's great, guys. It obviously sounds like things are moving in the right direction. How about the Northwest properties? Maybe, Michael, we'll go back to you and talk to you again a little bit about what's happening in that project. I know in previous conversations before, a lot of the things were happening. Maybe walk us through what's happening up there currently.
Yeah, so to date, the high-grade results that are coming from the Northwest property were limited, well, at least what we'd like to communicate to the investor community is that they're limited to relatively narrow quartz vein systems. So each location that we've previously drilled, the Northwest and also the rim targets, are 2 kilometers away from each other. The area being mostly covered by overburden, the till sampling we have found remains the only and essentially the best tool to detect the presence of gold. Also, there are not many geophysical methods available to us today that we can use to detect the presence of these veins or vein swarms. I think Martin can talk a little bit more in detail about the vein swarms and the targets that we initially drilled with the chlorite alteration and also at rim and how that's progressing forward. Martin?
Okay. Early last year in 2020, a first target was drilled with the discovery of 7 grams per ton over 0.6 meters along strike with what we call the Bonanza and Dome veins. It's located, as you mentioned, it's located 2 kilometers west of rim, and it was associated with, we found original shear zone with strong alteration and quartz stockworks and swarm. So it was a first step because historically these veins are isolated discovery, surface discovery with these first holes. We found some continuity and also that they are associated with some geological feature, large shear zones and alteration. So at rim, an exploration test was done using first one single line of soil geochemistry laid out to interpret possible parallel vein to the original rim showing over about 400 meters. Positive anomalies obtained in this soil survey have justified the drilling of 4 holes, totaling 472 meters. In these holes, different gold-bearing intersections were produced, such as 0.4 over 8.4 gram per tons over 8.25 meters. And we discovered that this mineralization was associated with a folded siltstone sandstone contact. So again, fold hinges and all of the appalachian mountain folding is an important control on this type of gold mineralization. The plurimetric width of gold mineralization as the associated structural model identified was really a game changer in that case.
Mm-hmm. And I think the planning of the step out program that we just triggered by the identification on the regional magnetic map, a large scale fold hinge which is actually located about 1.5 kilometers north of the rim vein target. So this observation justified to cover the rim area by a detailed airborne drone magnetic survey, which we completed in mid-January of 2021. The resulting program led to the immediate planning of 7 holes, which totaled 1,125 meters, going from the rim area to a distance of about 0.7 kilometers along strike toward the mapped fold hinge. And based on the initial observations made in these holes, visible gold was observed and announced in the first hole that was drilled 100 meters south of the initial rim showing. More importantly, all of the holes have intersected finely disseminated sulfides along the targeted corridor, which is also marked by a brittle fault swarm. We've also identified a rather large mafic dike, which was also announced in the previous press release, which we believe is related to the proximity of a regional fault.
Wow, okay, so that was a lot to digest, guys, and thanks again for that and giving us the description on the Northeast properties. That was fantastic news. And maybe just if we could maybe touch on Troilus East, Michael, I'll talk, direct that to you first. I understand there's still some more things to talk about there, so I'll pass it over to you, Michael, and maybe you can give us a little bit more insight.
Boots on the ground exploration campaign at Troilus East in June of 2020. We've identified a new polymetallic and gold trend located 2 to 3 kilometers southeast of Troilus Gold's 8.1 million ounce gold equivalent deposit. For those who don't know, Troilus Gold has since filed a positive PEA for a 22-year mine life operation based on approximately 5.2 million ounces. I think it's important to know that the scattered gold, silver, copper, zinc, bismuth, and tungsten values that we've obtained from our 2 kilometer by 0.5 kilometer or 500 meter area, which we've named the smoke showing, the range of metal values that we have obtained correspond to those of the metals from the Troilus mine cutoff grades. And I think that's really important. I wanted to invite Martin here to talk a little bit more about the geological similarities, because I think that's a very important fact with respect to the Troilus East property and our exploratory efforts moving forward. So I'll give it to Martin to talk about those.
Thank you, Mike. Based on the public information released by Troilus Gold, I'm talking about their technical report. Geological similarities can be highlighted between both projects, the Troilus mine, Troilus deposit, and the new smoke discovery. Diorite dikes, in that case, interlayered to volcanic rocks, are key as main hosts for this low sulfide copper gold mineralization. These intrusions seem to follow mafic to felsic contact associated with some chemical sediments, locally with chemical sediments and polymetallic sulfides. At the Troilus deposit scale, folding is controlling the shape of the deposit, and mineralization shoots. It can be extrapolated along the smoke showing trend, linking the two areas. X-Terra likes to present the smoke area as a potential extension of the Troilus deposit. At the outcrop scale, like Troilus, volcanic rocks at the smoke showing are heavily altered by potassic, like biotite mineral, and some aluminous and calc silicate alteration.
And I think the exploration approach that we've chosen to advance to the drilling stage needs to be systematic, it needs to be conservative and cost effective. Our latest geochemical sampling program is the second last step, which returned important anomalies reflecting the underlying geology, which in turn helps identify the blind targets where no surface exploration work was completed by our teams because there was no outcrops. So, but before we get the drills turning, we need to complete our IP survey, which will add even more precision to the drill targets. And this is, let's not forget that this will be the first time that this property has ever seen a drill bit. So, and that IP program is scheduled to debut shortly, which will be followed immediately after with the inaugural drilling program. So we're definitely excited to get the IP off the ground, and it's supposed to be starting, like I said, very shortly, within the next week or two.
Well, listen, Michael, Martin, thanks so much for being here. And you've given us so much to digest here. And we'll be looking forward to seeing you guys again real soon and bringing us some more great news about X-Terra Resources. Thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Chris. It's been a pleasure as always. And I look forward to our next rendezvous.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. Take care now.
You too. Bye-bye.